Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Mindhunter Season 2, Episode 3. And it's not got a title because it's just Episode 3.
It's finally fallen for the trap.
I did find the first two. Well, most shows I do episode number and then there's a title to give, but this show doesn't do that. It's literally just Episode 3. But full spoilers for the episode, as always. And this episode, we see the effects of the local killer. Keeps Bill. He pretends to be sick. He phones in a sick day, essentially, because his wife is freaking the hell out about everything. It turns out that the murderer was a child. The victim, the victim was a child. I want to make that clear. The way I said that was weird, but yeah, the victim was a child. 22 months, I believe, was the age given.
Yeah, there was definitely a 2. I wasn't sure it was 2 years or something with 2s in the months. So I think you're right.
It was months, yeah, because I know because it's always weird to me when they use months for a kid's age when it's over a year. Once it's over a year, no, it's a year and a bit. Like just say it.
And admittedly, I said, 2 years. That's basically 2 years.
It's close to 2 years. And Bill comes by the crime scene, and right away there's another officer there, which basically just completely debunks your. I mean, don't get me wrong, he could end up being the killer, but he's not making up the crime scene or anything like that.
He's not. I will say that didn't immediately debunk it. Not immediate. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, you think he's got an actor in a police uniform, being the uniform on the scene?
No. I'm just saying he could have. Look, I'm not saying that I believe any of this. I'm just saying hypothetically, he could have committed the murder after he went to the house, and because he went. My whole thing was, now he's got the code for the keys, right? He could have committed the murder after he'd been to the house. And then now that the crime scene
let me ask you, and I really need a proper answer to this question. After this full episode, do you still think that he might be the killer?
No.
Good.
Like I said, I wasn't being serious there. I'm just saying it didn't immediately shoot it entirely to hell.
Maybe not to hell, but it got to the edge. It was basically that scene from Terminator 2 where Sarah Connor's unloading the shotgun into the T-1000. He's right at the edge. He's about to fall into the molten metal. He's almost there. He's teetering.
Yeah.
And then everything else in the episode is Arnold coming up on the little, the cog and blasting him with a grenade launcher.
Pretty much.
Done. T-1000's dead. Connor's wrong. We can move on with our lives.
I'm not saying that I was right. Obviously, I wasn't. I said, even at the time, I said it was probably wrong. It was just it was something that popped into my head. But I just wanted that one thing you said there did not immediately confirm I was wrong, like you suggested.
It made it so much less likely. Like it really did. Yeah. It went from being like a 5% chance to a 0.05% chance.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'm just arguing the pedantics now.
Yeah, so he's brought by the shoes, the wife's shoes, and she's nervous about that. He's like, does he think I'm a suspect? He's like, it's standard. He's just ruling out what footprints are yours so that he can focus on the other ones. It's this straightforward, it's a simple procedure. But of course, not surprisingly, given the show, he says, "Hey, Bill, do you want to come in and have a look at the scene? Give me your expertise here." And they go around, and this is where he finds out that the victim was 22 months old. And we get this sort of crucifixion style, scene. Clearly there was stuff poured over him because there's a sort of outline of of where he was. Because it's not a chalk outline, because chalk outlines are a myth. They don't do that.
No, and even if they did, just that's a clear line. Whereas this looked like something had been poured. It was almost like salt or something like that, and the way it had spread.
Yeah. It was purely something that had been poured over the body. We see some glimpses of the photos from when the body was actually there, and talking about the various things in the room, and the cops first thought is like, it feels kind of like a cult or something. It feels almost satanic ritual, and Bill's like, oh, I get why you're thinking that, but that wouldn't be my first thought because it doesn't seem as elaborate as what they would do. This feels a bit more personal, and so they go to the scene, and he comes back home after the fact, and the wife starts asking questions about the victim, and she obviously before it cuts to them, she obviously hears that it's the kid that's died because she knows the parents, and she's mortified by it.
Yeah,
drops a plate.
And she's like, hey, you know the parents too. They go to the same church as us.
But he does hold back because she says, "Do you know how he died?" And he's like, "No," and he knows exactly how he died. Well, at least to a point. He knows it was on a crucifix, and There was a ritualistic whole thing to it.
Yeah.
And if later on she says, was there blood? And he goes, no. And then she's like, wait, how do you know? You know more than you're telling me, because you just said you didn't know how he died. So how do you know there was no blood? Like, she's quite smart. She puts two and two together very, very quickly.
In his defense, he went into the house. There wasn't, they wouldn't have cleaned up the crime scene yet, obviously. Oh, I didn't see any blood, but I didn't ask any more details. No, if he'd really wanted to give an answer.
Yeah, because your pedantic attitude is what's needed in this scene between this married couple.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez, I pity Paige. I pity her so much. Her life is going to be so miserable with you.
Probably.
So, they have this scene, and then later on, because obviously we cut to Holden for a lot of the episode, but I'll stick with Bill just now, where Bill, he sees Wendy at the office and just kind of like fakes his, I came down with something.
She doesn't buy it.
Nah, she didn't buy it. But later on, they're at church. This is right towards the end of the episode. Assuming I'm not missing out anything, I don't think I am. And the cop's there. He's talking to the congregation and telling them, what he's allowed to say to the public. He feels he should say to the public, which is, yes, the body was a child. This has happened. We're looking at all avenues. But the parents get very, because a lot of the people here are parents, and they're like, oh, we've got small kids. My daughter's afraid to go to school. Someone's afraid to leave the house. Blah blah blah. They're all terrified, and they're demanding. And one of the guys, I believe, is one of the guys at the barbecue back in episode 1. I feel like I recognize them.
Probably. And he's like, hey, I heard there might be a cult involved. Should we be on the lookout for a cult? And
I think we, as the audience, are waiting for Bill to stand up, because Bill's sitting there like not liking the sound of any of this, and Bill stands up and says, "Look, I can assure you there is no cult involved." Now he doesn't really know that. Like, his gut tells him there's not, and I believe he's been honest. He believes there isn't, but he doesn't know that for sure. I feel like his phrasing maybe should have been tweaked a little bit just to make it true.
I think he has the advantage of not being in an official capacity the way the other cop is, because the cop, it has to go. We don't, there's no evidence at this time.
Yeah, but are you looking forward to their reaction if it does wind up in a cult somewhere and he's wrong?
I am. Yeah. But like I say, he's not there on official capacity, which gives him the ability to be a bit more certain than if he was, being there, like he should have been on the job. He probably would have towed the line a bit more.
Yeah, but he comes in, he's very sure of himself, he's very stern. I'm with the FBI, I work with murders in this type of case. I can assure you it's not this. Let them do their job. They've got my full confidence. He basically gives him a little push. He gives the cop a little bit of help to get over, as it were, to use a wrestling term, which I know you don't understand, but it's essentially what this is.
I went right off my head.
It's essentially what this is, and I feel like we'll get little pieces of this case. And I think, obviously, the last episode, we had no idea the victim was a kid. We had no idea it was this specific. Obviously, it does tie in a little bit to something Holden encounters in his plot, because we have a child case on that as well. But it does make it kind of different, a little bit more interesting, and does make you wonder, was the killer the kids, at her house? Because, as was clearly pointed out in this episode, her name and phone number was on the for sale sign as a realtor. It was there.
Yeah, so if someone wanted to come in and look for the keys, they'd know where to go and look.
Yep. Although they did mention that the keys, in the lockbox or whatever it was, were missing. So
we're missing. So whoever's done this has unlocked the door, gone in, locked the door behind them, and then gone out the back.
Yes, because they said the back door was open.
Yeah.
So she's right to be freaked out that whoever this is can easily get her name and number from this. So Bill takes it. So I'll just take this off the sign. My wife doesn't want that open to the public and potentially the killer who might be kicking around.
Even though the killer's probably already got that information.
Probably does, but that'll still make her feel better.
Yeah.
So and so that's basically it. But I mean, obviously, I expect us to come back to this and get little bits and pieces. And maybe Bill will get a bit more involved, here or there in little bits.
Yeah, right now he's like, no, this isn't a serial killer. This isn't my jurisdiction. I'm just going to leave it to them.
Until there's a second,
of course.
Which actually lines up with a bit of dialogue in the other plot as well, where someone says, hey, as much as we hate to say it, sometimes we can't actually make connections until there's more bodies to make connections to. So really, really dark. So Holden, and obviously this is kind of scary because Bill even like hesitates because he says, Holden, let's just push the trip. Because when he's trying to like phone in sick, I was like, no, I'll just go myself. It's fine. Easy peasy. And he's, you can see him like hesitating, like, this is not a good idea, but okay, sure. And he's arranged this trip with Jim Barney, who was one of the guys that actually interviewed for Greg's job last season. Yeah. And we see him meet up with him. And obviously, I think Bill had arranged this anyway because he wanted to catch up with him. But it's almost this neat little thing where Bill might feel better. Oh, someone else is there with him. He's not on his own.
Yeah.
Not that he even agreed on the phone that Jim would be going with him to the interviews. That's something that kind of happened naturally in the car, kind of. But Jim clearly read up in the killers, thinking, oh, maybe I can get involved here, as we find out during the
he
interviews.
Wants to prove himself so that should a position become available, he will be thought of. Yeah,
and and Bill was rooting for him. Holden says he was. I don't remember if he was until it was 2 years ago. I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember the minutiae of that.
You certainly get the impression, and again, I can't remember the scenes. I don't remember if Shepard ever said anything to them about hiring someone. People can remind us in the comments if that's the case.
Yeah, I feel like Jim mentioned something about nepotism with picking Greg. I can't remember the specifics there.
Yeah, but there's definitely implications throughout this episode. There's a lot of racial talk throughout this episode, and it definitely does occur because, let's be honest, the FBI right now, whenever we're around it, is nothing but white faces. That's really all it is. Whenever we're in the Quantico building, in fact, hell, Wendy might be one of the only women to her there. It's just it's a lot of white dudes.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably fairly representative of reality at the time.
Oh, sure, yeah. I don't think it's inaccurate what it's doing. But I think the point here that we're making is that, it's like, yeah, he probably was maybe more qualified than Greg. Might have been more trustworthy than Greg as well, given what happened with Greg later on.
Yeah.
Although Greg does actually bring something to the table a little bit later in the episode.
He does.
He brings some philosophical analysis.
Greg the philosopher.
I know. Out of nowhere, he starts talking about Plato. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Greg, control yourself. But no, so this is in Georgia, and this was the twofer that we're talking about last. They were going to see these two instead of Son of Sam, but it got switched around. So now he's seeing these two, and they go to see Pierce. And I think what's fascinating about these two interviews is that they're easily the two least interesting interviews the show has had. However, that's intentional because Holden himself becomes disinterested very quickly in both and is just kind of bored. It's genius.
It's a double-edged sword because yes, there is a point to it, and I appreciate that point. Still makes these interviews very underwhelming and not just it makes the episode significantly less interesting than it could have been for me.
I think you're looking at it from the wrong perspective. I think you're looking at it as I didn't get my fill of what I wanted, therefore I am disappointed.
It's not even that. It's the sense that we talked in the first episode. This show shines in the interviews, and the other stuff is just good, right? It's not, the other stuff isn't necessarily great. Or the interviews are the special point. And then I've got two interviews here, and both of them are just okay. Is disappointing for me.
There's some great stuff in this episode. I think. It's making a point though, and I think that's what makes him completely okay. I think the point that Holden becomes disinterested, and we feel that with him, is good storytelling.
It's good storytelling, but it's less entertaining.
Matter of opinion. I don't know if I agree with you on this.
Fair enough. Especially to me, it was less entertaining to watch.
Especially since it's entirely because the minute I saw Holden feel the same way I did, I became engaged with it in a different way. It became different to what it normally. It was interesting in a completely different manner, and it was not unclear or it's not uncommon for this show to take episodes off from the interviews. Obviously the first one didn't have any, but season 1 had episodes without the traditional interviews as well.
It did, and those were probably the weakest episodes.
Yeah, but I'm saying you're getting this instead of one of those. You're getting actual interviews instead, and this episode brought up a lot of interesting dynamics. So I think it's just too much of an easy write-off to say, I didn't get my traditional Mindhunter interview, therefore
I'm not
it's a
writing it all off.
Episode.
I'm saying it was less entertaining for me to watch. As I would say, the first episode was less entertaining for me to watch.
Oh, this was much better than the first episode. No, I'm fighting you on this. But they go to see Pierce, right? And Pierce is a moron. He is a blubbery moron who wants to think he's smart, and he keeps using big words that he thinks are intelligent, and they're always just a little off. And Holden,
they're not far off. He's close.
Yeah,
he's just right there.
And every time Holden kind of repeats it, and eventually Pierce starts getting really upset with him. But he's an idiot. He's like a straight up idiot. And what's great about this is that Jim really wants to prove himself, and he's done his reading. So he actually, because Holden gets uninterested, Jim has this opportunity to come in and try and approach the conversation. Because that's the thing, not only is Holden uninterested, Holden is used to dealing with these maniacal evil geniuses where he has to kind of like go through their maze and like outwit them. He can't outwit this idiot because he's already outwitting them, because this guy's an idiot, right? It's that simple. Yeah. Jim offers him some candy and gets him to speak. It's genius. He treats him like he's a kid, and it actually starts to work. And my favorite part of all this is that throughout it, he keeps denying like because it was like 8 murders in total, right? And he keeps denying like 3 or 4 of them, and
he'd already confessed it.
Yeah, and Holden, no matter what he says, he just is adamant that no, I was helping them. And then Jim says, "Well, how did you know where the bodies were? Because you did tell the police that." He's like, "Oh, I'm clairvoyant. I helped them with my 6th sense." And he goes on this bullshit. And then he says eventually, "Well, what about these other 2 or 3 murders that were not mentioned yet?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I did them." And that's the end of the scene. I laughed. That was a hilarious capper to that scene.
It was. I give that. That and the whole languages thing was pretty amusing.
Yeah, I can speak, because I actually got the answer, because he listed 6 and I'm like, we didn't say English, because he said he could speak 7 and he listed 6. And the first,
it's just funny because when it's like, oh, that was only 6, he sits there and he goes through them again. It's like, he's there going, what am I missing?
And Jim eventually's like, English?
He's like, that's it. That's the one.
Yeah, and he's already been pretty racist up until this point. He's made a couple of comments about, it was a black FBI agent, with worse language in that. I'm neutering it for the sake of not wanting to say some things, and but Jim finds a way to just kind of make him feel comfortable, which is essentially what Holden normally does, but he has to do it in a completely different way to what Holden does, because it's a different type of person. And it really shows Jim's value if he joined the team, because he can tackle different people. And as later on, when they're discussing the value of talking to these people, Holden, because Wendy just says what we said, and what I was already feeling is that Holden just stopped caring about these 2. And it's like, no, but we got something of value, and these characters are different because they act differently. Even if they feel like idiots, they still did certain things after the fact, at the very least. They'll help us analyze the ones who do things differently. That everything is valuable. It's kind of what I was saying last episode about how, okay, maybe Son of Sam's not identical to the other type of killers I've been looking at, but
you have to make the connections.
Yeah, the contrast and whatnot is important. So, the interview was interesting. And I'll skip ahead to the other interview before we go back and do all the other Holden stuff, because that's kind of one big meaty plot. So the second killer, if I just get the name, it was, I believe, William Henry Hans, I believe, is the second killer, and this was the one black killer on their list, and that made him kind of notable, because serial killers are traditionally white. Even serial killing apparently is not an equal thing. So it's all white men. Even the
vast majority, yeah.
Yeah, even the serial killing, the white men have cornered apparently. I don't know what sort of dark joke I'm trying to make, but just go with it.
Hey, anyone could be a serial killer if they really want to. Don't hold back.
Believe in yourself, but don't. But don't. It's the wrong thing to do. Don't be a serial killer. That was
really tone deaf of us, wasn't it?
Don't be a serial killer. It's a really bad thing. Don't be a serial killer. People do not deserve to be killed. So you have this other idiot. Let's be honest. He's also an idiot. He's an idiot in a slightly different way to the first guy, and he also thinks he's smart, but he thinks he's smart in this really, because the first guy kept trying to pretend he was smart, and it was kind of, it's almost like he knew deep down he was an idiot, but he was determined to prove that he wasn't. This guy keeps saying things that are incredibly dumb, but thinks he's a genius when he says them. Because Holden's saying, "Oh, why did you send in this letter saying this to the press or whatever?" And then the second thing, you ask for money for the return of this person, but you already said in the first letter that you'll never find the body. You'd already implied they were dead, and then you started asking for ransom money.
And he's just like, "But they didn't know she was dead yet."
Yeah, but they didn't know that. And the sad part is that I actually think there was some smart analysis in here where, there was already another killer that was supposed to be a black man, and the police were looking for a black man, so he created like a white villain essentially to try and take some spotlight. There was almost like a smart bit of analysis of like a black killer trying to take the spotlight off his sort of racial profile as a tactic, and I was like, yeah, there's actually something to read into in that, and talk about the idea that every black man was now a suspect because of police discrimination, right? Yeah. And the idea of him trying to almost veer away from that by creating a white boogeyman. There's some interesting conversation to be had there, but it's so wrapped up in this idiotic letter chain that he had going. And again, it's Jim that kind of steps in and gets them to open up a little bit, but they keep looking at each other, just dumbfounded, and like, how do we talk
They get
to?
a lot less out of this guy because he
Yeah,
is that idiotic that he doesn't even realize that what he's saying makes no sense.
it's almost again like he's trying to be this smart serial killer with these letters, but he's just too dumb to actually pull it off.
Yeah.
So like, again, entertaining in a very different way than these interviews are usually entertaining. But I mean, I don't really expect comic relief to this extent from the killers in this show, but this episode kind of had that in a weird way, which is good because the actual other plot we told him was very depressing and dark. Because when
But there was a couple of comedic beats in there.
Oh, sure. There was a little bit of Holden being dumbfounded by like what was happening because
Thinking he was going on a date.
yeah, he's essentially kidnapped into being an FBI agent for a night because he thinks he's hitting it off with the concierge, who, as soon as she learns he's an FBI agent, she's like, "Oh, you're an FBI agent," and she gets all kind of flustered.
Take you up to your room.
Yeah, and invites them out to dinner because the room service sucks and blah blah blah. But it's even before they go into the hotel though. There's a moment where we see like a bunch of kids with their parents all holding hands, going home, and he kind of notices this, and he asked Jim about it. He's like, "Oh, it's not the same level of protection in every neighborhood." So we're getting into kind of, especially when we're in the South as well, just to kind of amplify that. And it's kind of this idea, okay, the black neighborhoods aren't as well protected, and you get the impression that there's something dangerous going on right now, even if Holden doesn't know what it is yet. And we find out, of course, when he's taken to this date, this dinner, there's these mothers of victims. There's been children all around the same age. They're all young boys, and they've all went missing, and most of them have wound up dead in various kind of inventive ways. Like one kid was stuffed into like a concrete hole or something to that effect.
But the police are assuming there is no connection. They're just, it's just separate people killing kids because there is no consistent manner.
And they're asking Holden about it because they're all like quite close together and whatnot. And Holden, of course, looks at this because they've built their own little profile. They've got their own little folder with all their details in case.
Yeah, and they've done their own interviews with witnesses and stuff that the police didn't bother with, apparently.
Yeah, they feel they're being left behind by the police, and Holden, being Holden, does want to care, is fascinated by the case and wants to look into it. And Jim, when he hears about this new obsession of his at breakfast, he's like, okay, let's go to the interview, and I've got someone you can speak to later. And he takes him to this sort of off books cop. He's like this retired cop. He still does things for them, like off the books, when there's not supposed to be official capacity kind of thing. And he looks at the case and he talks about it, and we get a lot of really interesting sort of world setting details here, as well as just so he sort of goes through the case with him and says, okay, there doesn't seem like there's a lot of connections here, and I get why you're sort of looking for them, but it feels very thin because one kid was strangled, one kid was stabbed, and one was definitely sexually assaulted, but the others weren't. There's a lot of things that don't quite add up. But Holden has this gut feeling, his instinct. We keep talking about his instinct. He's like, no, it feels like there's a predator. It feels like someone's hunting these kids. And we get some details where things are progressing. They've got a black mayor now, but they want to try and increase tourism and business. They want more business to come in. They want to open a new airport. They want to bring people in to funnel money into the city. And a child predator would scare people away. So it's politics. It's just straight up politics.
Yeah, I mean, they're not wrong. They're wrong to cover it up.
They're not wrong
in their thought process.
Yeah, you're saying they're not wrong that it will scare people away. But you're not saying that you're not.
I'm not saying. Yeah, no, I'm not saying they're not wrong. They should definitely be doing this.
Yeah. So, and when Holden says, okay, they're looking into this, they're looking into like the history of the kids and the families and all that. The woman that got him involved, if I just forget her name here, Tanya, she immediately goes cold with them and is like, no, it's always the same. They always blame the histories with the families and the kids, and that's always the thing. And just kind of takes the folder off of them and just kind of shuns them and leaves.
Yeah.
And I know this is the last we're going to hear of this. I feel like we're going to hear more of this, especially given that Jim's been reintroduced as a prominent character, and this is his area. Unless he gets a job in Quantico, this is where he's working.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
I would suspect we'll see a fair amount of this, especially with the thematic tie-in to what's going on, with Bill.
Yeah, so it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know if it'll be next episode. It might be like later on. We'll come back to maybe Jim will call him and say, "Hey, there's been a development. There's been another body found." This kind of opens up some possibilities. Because
I actually think there was a bit of an awareness at the end in terms of for them to make connections with Greg's hypothesis.
Yeah, because Greg says that because they're talking about the second killer, the interview,
Yeah,
Hans, where they're saying because Hans, when he's asked why did he kill this, because most of his victims were black, but there was one white woman, and they're saying why did you specifically target this white woman, and he says I didn't even notice she was white. That's essentially what he says, and basically Greg's theory is that sure, racial selection is obviously a thing with a lot of people, but with Kemper, he had one victim that wasn't white, but it wasn't because she wasn't white. It was just that she's another co-ed. There's another key linking factor between all the victims that it didn't matter to him. And in this case, maybe he recognized something because he said they're both soldiers.
right.
They're both vets.
So I'm thinking here with the kids, it's like okay, it's the specific about the kids that we don't know yet. Maybe they've got in their files that they can link. Whereas, usually it's the method of killing or something like that, which is what they use to link. Whereas obviously they're clearly all different here.
I mean, my first thought whenever we talk about methods of killing is it's always like obviously there's a reason to think that some killers do have their set like way they like to do it, and they always do it the exact same way. But if you were trying to be evasive, surely you would purposefully mix it up and say, well, I'll do it different ways so they don't think I'm the same killer every time.
If you wanted to specifically hide your tracks,
which you might not.
Obviously, a lot of them don't. We talked a lot about this in season 1. It's the ego, and they need to be known, and
the fame, and blah blah blah.
Even last episode with Son of Stam controlling the story, you can't do that if you're just trying to stay hidden.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, and Wendy kind of acknowledges that and says, "No, you're right. There's maybe these other factors we have to consider. That not every killer is going by the same MO or the same."
And again, they're like,
process.
should we just throw our classifications out the window, or do we need to add more, or do we need to rework the entire thing?
Yeah, because the key figure here is that, or the key thing here that kind of prompts that question is that some of them are disorganized but become more organized after the fact. When they try to handle it, is that a new subclassification, or do we just need to completely reestablish? Is that like a third classification now?
Yeah, or is the organized disorganized complete bollocks, and we need a different way of doing it entirely?
Which may be the case. I don't know. I've not studied criminal psychology, so I have no idea where they're going with this.
I don't think I had ever heard the term. I mean, in this context, organized and disorganized, before season 1 of this. So maybe they do just throw it out of the way, or maybe it's just something I'd never come across.
Yeah, absolutely. So. No, I was into I love them getting these ongoing cases that they might be able to solve. Like, it gives them some wins, because obviously all these killers are all these people who have been caught, so we can't win against them. They're only useful tools. They have to win cases that are ongoing. And obviously BTK is the big fish, and we should mention his opening scene, which isn't got much to it. It's just he's in a library drawing one of his victims, or maybe one of his potential victims, maybe a better accurate way of saying that. And he's told the library's closing, so he should leave.
But he's a bit wrapped up in it, and again, it's he doesn't seem to be out hunting, right? To go back to like last episode was he'll be out there every night hunting. He'll have no free time. He's sat in the library. He's coping to well, don't get me wrong, it's still related to what's going on, but he's not actively hunting.
Oh yeah, he's clearly thinking about this all the time. This is his passion. This is what he can't stop thinking about.
Absolutely, but let's say he's not actively hunting for anyone.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So no. And of course, Wendy has a little plot at the end as well, where she's in the bath and she's gets bored, or she's working up the courage, and she goes out to the bar and asks the bartender out on a date, and that's basically it. Yeah, they have a shot.
They'll probably have a date next episode.
Yeah. In fact, the image on Netflix for the next one is them. It looks like they were bowling, so I think they were bowling together.
There you go. They're on a date.
Yeah. Typical date. The boys season 1 just had a bowling date. That's what you do.
It's a classic date.
It's a classic date. Yeah, don't want it to be too serious in the first date, so just a bit of light fun bowling.
Yeah, everyone likes bowling, don't they?
Yeah, for a casual player, yeah. I mean, not everyone's into the serious sport aspect.
No, but everyone likes it too. Yeah, sure, I'll go bowling.
Yeah, I'll go throw a bowl down a.
Yeah. I'm not saying, okay,
I'll go throw a ball down a ball. You know what I meant?
Yeah. No, I'm not saying everyone's going. I'm going to go join a bowling team and we're going to take this seriously. No, of course not. But everyone's like, yeah, sure, I'll go bowling. I don't know anyone who. I've never known anyone who is opposed to that.
Sure. But yeah. So no, I thought this episode was really interesting. It set up some personal cases that need to be solved, both for Holden and Bill. Obviously, Bill's is much more personal because it's in his neighborhood, it's in his vicinity.
Yeah.
And Holden doesn't even know about this yet. I mean, at what point does he turn to Holden and say, "Hey"?
When there's a second one.
Yeah, probably. I need to direct your attention to this. Use your superpowers on this.
Yeah, probably not before that, unless it starts affecting his work. And probably Wendy will pull him up first, to be honest, because she'll probably notice before Holden does.
But there's definitely a second one, right?
Yeah.
Not a doubt in my mind there's going to be a second one.
Yeah, of course there is.
Yeah. And do you know what I love about this show is that because it's all over the country and because, the place is so big and there's so many serial killers, it's like, you never feel like they're having too many serial killers where it's unbelievable. It feels like, no, they're so spread out that, okay, there's one now in their area, but of course, I buy there's one. Like,
yeah, sure.
If there was one in the Virginia area last season, I'd be like, okay, come on, another one already. Like,
yeah, but because they're actively traveling to find other ones rather than them dropping on their doorstep all the time.
And of course, the beauty of it is that they're all, maybe not the one that's in his neighborhood, but all the other ones are all based on real killers. They all existed. Nothing's been made up in terms of the quantity of serial killers.
Yeah,
they're all there.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, maybe I imagine the season 1, the one that they caught was probably made up. I imagine the ones that they're actively catching, that are active, are probably for the most part made up.
Be right. I can't remember the name of the one from season 1.
Obviously, BTK isn't, but like I imagine maybe these ones that are sort of just active just now.
Yeah, unless it was ones that were caught by this early division of the FBI and they just kind of reworked it into the story.
Yeah, if anyone knows in the comments actually about the Atlanta case specifically with the kids, if that's a real.
Oh no, that one is. That's the Atlanta child murders. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You knew about this.
Which I will admit, I thought was slightly later than this because I thought we were like 77 maybe, and I thought that was like closer to 80. So, but I mean, I could be wrong on that.
Well, we may be closer to 80.
Is that much time passed? It doesn't feel like it.
Well,
but...
no, there was not so much time passed, but like I'm not sure because they keep saying things happened in 77, which implies they're not in 77.
That's true. You're right. Yeah.
So I think we're in 78, 79. I think it's still the 70s, but I think we're.
Yeah. It's definitely a real thing, though.
Despite the huge captions for the locations, I don't recall any saying the year at the start of the season.
I don't either, which is really frustrating because those location captions are the entire goddamn screen.
The first thing we said, I remember the pilot, or maybe not the first thing we said, but one of the things we said in the pilot was that the captions are the biggest thing I've ever seen, but the actual show credits at the end are some of the tiniest font that I've ever witnessed in a TV show.
They really are.
They're just the extremes at both ends. It's great.
Yeah.
So
I will say is slightly off topic. Well, I mean, still related to the show, but tangent to not this episode in particular. I find myself skipping the opening credits on this one. The opening theme.
Do you know? I think I did a bit in the first season. I haven't so far this season, but that's because opening credits time is like check my phone for notifications time.
That's fair. I think. I don't remember the skip credits option being a thing on Netflix that long ago.
It was.
Oh, it must have been relatively fresh then.
Because I remember using it during season 1.
Fair enough. But I find it's not the most interesting opening.
That said, I don't remember. This I could easily go check this, but I don't remember the quick flashes of like crime scene photos in the original season. But I could just be misremembering. I just not remember them.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I watched the first one because first season back, first episode back. Sure, I'll watch it. I'd kind of forgotten what it was.
It'll get you in the mood as well because it's like I always like seeing like the studio logos at the start of movies because it always puts me in the mood for a movie. It's like
No, I get that. But after the first one, I'm like, okay, I've seen that now. It's not interesting enough that I need to spend a good minute on it every episode.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. That's episode 3. That's episode 3 of Mindhunter Season 2. We'll be back hopefully tomorrow night with episode 4. We're trying to keep these daily, more or less.
So far, so good.
As best we can. So hopefully we'll see you then for episode 4. So let us know what you think of episode 3 in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. If you like our content, if you like all the reviews that come out for all the TV shows and the movie podcasts and everything else, and want to make sure it keeps coming, you can support us over at patreon.com/mailedfuzztv, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month, and you get some bonuses and extras for that, as well as some other things at the higher tiers. Like the names at the end of the videos, for example, is one of the higher tiers as well. So go and have a look and see if you want to do that. You can, of course, get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates, and you can check out other content we have. We just finished doing The Boys on Amazon, season 1 of that, so all 8 episodes are reviewed, so you can check out that playlist. We're still a few away from finishing Too Old to Die Young season 1. That one's been ongoing for a while because the episodes are so long and we're really busy for a while, but that's still going. I'm currently reviewing season 3 of Glow on my own, so you can check that out on the same audio feed as this. And all the non-Netflix shows, of course, if you're on the podcast feed, are on an Almost Cancelled TV Reviews audio feed. So there's 2 TV review audio feeds, as well as the audio feed for the Almost Cancelled TV News podcast, which we do weekly. So go check out that. That's all the TV content that we more or less do. So go and have a look. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?